The heat shimmered off the asphalt in waves, distorting the endless expanse of the Texas Panhandle into a mirage. On the shoulder of a lonely stretch of Highway 287, just outside of Amarillo, a Ford F-150 sat silently, its hazard lights blinking a slow, pathetic rhythm. The truck, a well-kept but unremarkable 2015 model, was the picture of anonymous reliability, which made its current state of failure all the more frustrating for its owner. The man leaning against the driver's side door was dressed in the unofficial uniform of the region, worn denim jeans, scuffed leather boots, and a faded baseball cap pulled low against the brutal afternoon sun. He looked like any other ranch hand or farmer whose day had just been ruined by a mechanical failure. In reality, he was Samuel Sam Caldwell, and he owned not just the cattle in the next field, but the field itself, and the 10,000 acres that stretched out beyond it, all the way to the horizon. At 60, he was the patriarch of Caldwell Ranches, one of the largest and most successful cattle operations in the state, a man whose net worth was measured in 9 figures. But at that moment, under the oppressive Texas sun, his wealth was useless. His phone had no signal, and his truck wouldn't start. But before we dive into this roadside encounter and the surprising truth it reveals, I have to ask, where in the world are you watching this story from? Are you in the United States, perhaps somewhere in Europe, or another part of the globe? Drop a comment below and let us know. And tell me this, have you ever been the stranger who stopped to help, or the person who was saved by an unexpected act of kindness? Let's build a community that believes in looking out for one another. Sam was a man of action, a man who solved problems. He had already checked the basics. The battery was strong, the engine cranked over with healthy enthusiasm. It just wouldn't fire. He suspected a fuel issue, but he was miles from anywhere. With no tools and no cell service, dozens of cars and trucks had sped past, their drivers either oblivious or indifferent. He was just starting to resign himself to a long, hot wait for a state trooper to happen by when a vehicle slowed down and pulled onto the shoulder behind him. It was an older, slightly battered-looking service truck, a white Ford E350 van with Hayes Mobile Auto and Diesel Repair hand-painted on the side. The driver's door opened and a woman stepped out. She was in her early 30s, dressed in practical work pants and a grease-stained t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She had a kind, competent look about her. This was Amelia Amy Hayes. Amy was on her way home to the small town of Canyon after a long day fixing a fleet of hay balers on a farm 30 miles north. She was tired, dirty, and ready for a cold drink. She had seen the stranded F-150 and, like dozens of others, had considered just driving by. But her father, a mechanic who had taught her everything she knew, had drilled one rule into her above all others. You never leave someone stranded on a Texas highway, especially not in the August heat. It was a code of the road, a simple act of human decency. "Looks like you're having a bad day," she said, her voice friendly and calm as she approached. Sam, surprised that anyone had stopped, let alone a woman in a service truck, managed a tired smile. "You could say that. She cranks but won't start. I'm guessing the fuel pump finally gave up." Amy nodded, her eyes already scanning the truck, taking in the details. "That's a common one on these Fords. Mind if I take a look? Might be something simple." Sam, grateful for any help, stepped aside. "Be my guest. At this point, I'm open to suggestions." Amy's movements were efficient and professional. She wasn't just a parts changer, she was a diagnostician. She asked Sam to crank the engine while she listened, her ear close to the fuel tank. "I don't hear the pump priming when you turn the key," she called out. "So you're right, it's a fuel delivery problem." But instead of immediately declaring the pump dead, she started with the basics. She pulled a small multimeter from a pouch on her belt. First, she checked the fuses. In the fuse box under the hood, she found the fuse for the fuel pump. It was intact. "Fuse is good," she announced. Next, she located the fuel pump relay. She had Sam turn the key on and off, and she could feel the relay clicking, which meant it was being energized. But she knew that a click didn't necessarily mean it was working correctly. Her next step was to check for power at the source. The easiest place to do that on an F-150 is at the inertia switch, a safety device designed to cut power to the fuel pump in the event of a crash. It was located behind the passenger side kick panel. She popped the panel off, located the switch, and used her multimeter to test for power. Nothing. The switch wasn't getting any voltage from the relay. This was a crucial clue. The problem wasn't the pump itself. The problem was that no power was even reaching the back of the truck. The issue was somewhere between the relay in the front and the inertia switch in the cab. Okay, so the relay is clicking, but it's not sending power out, she diagnosed. Could be a bad relay, or it could be a problem with the fuse box itself. Changing a relay on the side of the highway was easy. Diagnosing a faulty fuse box was not. The sun was beginning to dip towards the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Fixing this properly on the side of a busy highway in the fading light was not a safe option. Amy made a decision based on her father's second rule. Get the customer to safety first, then fix the car right. All right, here's what I'm going to do, she said to Sam, who had been watching her work with growing respect. The fuse box terminal for the fuel pump relay is probably corroded or loose. I can't fix that safely out here. But I can get you to town. I'm going to run a temporary bypass circuit. It's not a permanent fix, but it will get your truck running so you can follow me to my shop in Canyon. Sam was taken aback by her professionalism and her focus on his safety. The dealership mechanic who serviced his fleet of ranch trucks would have just called for a tow truck and a massive bill. Amy was finding a practical, immediate solution. He watched as she ran a single fused wire from the battery to a switch she mounted temporarily on the dash, and then back to the inertia switch, creating a completely independent power supply for the fuel pump. It was an ingenious and elegant roadside fix. She double-checked her connections. Okay, turn that switch on, and then try to start it. Sam flipped the small toggle switch, and for the first time, he heard the distinct high-pitched hum of the fuel pump coming to life. He turned the key. The engine cranked once, twice, and then roared to life, settling into a "aye-oh," smooth, healthy idle. Sam let out a laugh of pure relief. I don't believe it, you're a miracle worker. Amy just smiled. I'm a mechanic. It's what I do. Now follow me. My shop is about 15 miles up the road in Canyon. We'll get it fixed properly in the morning. Sam pulled out his wallet, ready to pay her whatever she asked for the roadside rescue. How much do I owe you for this? You saved me. Amy held up a hand. Don't worry about it. Just get yourself to town safely. We can sort out the bill when the job is actually finished. I don't charge for incomplete work. Sam was floored. In his world, everyone had their hand out. Her integrity, even more than her skill, impressed him deeply. He just nodded, got in his truck, and followed the taillights of her service van as they drove off into the Texas sunset. He had a feeling he hadn't just met a good mechanic. He had met a truly exceptional person. The town of Canyon, Texas, was a small, tight-knit community where everyone knew. Everyone. Amy's shop, Hayes Mobile Auto and Diesel Repair, wasn't on the main street. It was a modest two-bay metal building on the edge of town, behind her small house. It was impeccably clean and organized, every tool in its place, a testament to her disciplined and methodical nature. It was a one-woman operation, a business she had built from the ground up after her father passed away, earning a reputation for being the person you called when no one else could figure out the problem. Sam. Caldwell, used to the sprawling state-of-the-art maintenance facility at his own ranch, was struck by the humble efficiency of her operation. It was a place built on skill, not on corporate overhead. The next morning, Amy had the F-150 on her lift, ready to find the root cause of the problem. She could have just made her temporary bypass permanent and sent Sam on his way, but that wasn't how she worked. A bypass was a patch, not a fix. Her professional pride demanded that she find and repair the original point of failure. Sam, who had stayed the night in a local motel, had walked over to the shop, curious to see her work. He told her he ran a small family ranch a few hours south, deliberately downplaying his immense wealth. He was enjoying the anonymity, being treated as just another guy with a broken truck. He was also genuinely fascinated by her diagnostic process. So, you're sure it's in the fuse box? Sam asked, sipping a coffee Amy had made for him. The symptoms point to it, Amy explained, pulling out a specialized toolkit for testing electrical terminals. The relay clicks, which means the control side of the circuit is working, but the load side isn't passing current. That means the failure is either inside the relay itself or in the socket the relay plugs into. Since it's an intermittent problem that happens when things heat up and vibrate, I'm betting on a loose connection in the socket. She removed the fuel pump relay and used a small inspection mirror and a flashlight to peer into the fuse box. It was difficult to see, but one of the female terminals inside the socket looked slightly discolored, a telltale sign of overheating from a poor connection. To confirm, she performed a voltage drop test, a diagnostic technique that many modern parts-swapping mechanics often skip. She reinstalled the relay, and using her temporary bypass to power the pump, she used her sensitive multimeter to measure the tiny amount of voltage that was being lost across the connection. A good connection should have a voltage drop of virtually zero. Her meter read a drop of over 2 volts. "There's our problem," she said, showing Sam the meter. "We're losing 2 volts across that connection. It's like trying to drink water through a pinched straw. There's so much resistance that not enough power is getting through to reliably run the pump." Now came the hard part. Repairing a terminal inside a complex, multi-layered fuse box is a meticulous and time-consuming job. The dealership would have simply replaced the entire fuse box, a repair that would have cost Sam over $1,000 in parts and labor. Amy believed in repairing, not just replacing. For the next 2 hours, Sam watched, captivated, as Amy performed what amounted to microsurgery on the fuse box. She carefully disconnected the main power, unbolted the fuse box from its mounting, and began the delicate process of disassembling it, layer by layer, to access the terminals on the back. Her movements were precise and confident. She explained each step to Sam as she worked, not in a condescending way, but as one professional sharing her craft with another. Sam, who had managed multi-million-dollar construction projects and vast herds of cattle, found himself completely engrossed in the small, intricate world of electrical terminals and wiring harnesses. He asked intelligent questions, and he was impressed by the depth of her knowledge. They talked as she worked, not just about the truck, but about life in the Panhandle, about the struggles of running a small business, about the importance of honest work. Sam, without revealing the scale of his own operation, talked about the challenges of modern ranching, the rising cost of equipment, and the difficulty of finding good, reliable help. "It's hard to find people who take pride in their work anymore," Sam said, a note of frustration in his voice. "Everyone wants to take the easy way out, the quick fix. Nobody wants to find the root of the problem. My dad always said, if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing right," Amy replied, carefully cleaning the corroded terminal she had finally exposed. "He said a patch will always fail, but a proper repair will last a lifetime. That's the only way I know how to work." Her words resonated deeply with Sam. That was his philosophy, the principle upon which he had built his entire empire. He had found a kindred spirit in this unassuming mechanic in a small-town garage. After cleaning the corrosion, Amy used a special tool to recrimp the wire to the terminal, ensuring a tight, permanent mechanical and electrical bond. She then meticulously reassembled the fuse box, layer by layer. Before reinstalling it, she tested every single fuse and relay to make sure she hadn't inadvertently disturbed another circuit. It was a level of thoroughness that was almost unheard of. Finally, she bolted the fuse box back into place, removed her temporary bypass circuit, and reconnected the main battery. The moment of truth had arrived. "Okay," she said, wiping her hands. "Give it a try." Sam climbed into the driver's seat and turned the key. He heard the immediate, confident hum of the fuel pump priming. He turned the key further, and the engine started instantly. The truck was fixed. Not patched, but truly fixed. The root cause of the failure had been found and professionally repaired. Sam was more than just grateful, he was deeply impressed. He pulled out his wallet, ready to shower her with cash. "Amy, I can't thank you enough. Name your price. Whatever it is, it's not enough." Amy just smiled and walked over to her small desk. She wrote out an invoice on a simple carbon copy pad. The bill read, "Roadside assistance, 1 hour around 75 char. Diagnostic and repair labor, 2 hours around 98 char. Shop supplies, $5. The total was $260. Sam stared at the invoice in disbelief. He had been fully prepared to pay thousands. He had spent more than this on a single pair of cowboy boots. "Amy, this is not enough. This is not right. You saved me from being stranded. You spent hours on this." Amy held up her hand, her expression firm but kind. "Mr. Caldwell, that's my standard rate. It's a fair price for the work I did. I'm not going to charge you more just because you were in a tough spot. That's not how I do business." Her integrity was absolute. It was so foreign to the cutthroat world of corporate negotiations and billion-dollar deals Sam lived, in that it almost didn't seem real. He paid the $260, shook her hand and thanked her again, a deep and genuine respect in his eyes. As he drove his perfectly running truck out of her dusty yard and back towards his own world, he knew two things for certain. First, he had just met one of the most skilled and honorable people of his entire life, and second, a bill for $260 was not going to be the end of their story. A week passed. For Amy Hayes, it was a week like any other. She fixed a tractor with a hydraulic leak, replaced the brakes on a local school bus, and diagnosed an electrical issue on a combine harvester. She had almost forgotten about the polite rancher and his F-150. Then, on a Tuesday morning, a large, brand-new flatbed truck from a dealership in Amarillo pulled up in front of her small shop. On the back of the flatbed was a brand-new, gleaming white Ford F-550 service truck. It was the top-of-the-line model, equipped with a powerful diesel engine, a hydraulic crane, a massive air compressor, a welder, and row upon row of built-in toolboxes. It was a mobile workshop that cost more than Amy's house. The truck driver got out and handed her a set of keys and a simple, thick envelope. "This is for you, ma'am," he said. "Paid in full." Amy stared at the truck, then at the keys, completely bewildered. She opened the envelope. Inside was the title for the new truck, already signed over to Hayes Mobile Auto and Diesel Repair. And tucked inside the title was a handwritten note on thick, expensive-looking letterhead, embossed with the logo of a stylized Longhorn cattle brand. The letterhead read, "From the office of Samuel Caldwell, Caldwell Ranches." The note was brief and to the point. "Dear Amy," it began, "thank you again for your help last week. Your skill and, more importantly, your integrity are a rare find these days. I believe that true expertise and honest work should be rewarded. This truck is not a gift. It is an investment. It is the tool I believe a professional of your caliber deserves to have. Please accept it with my deepest respect. P.S. I lied. My ranch isn't that small." Tucked behind the note was a second document, a formal multi-year contract proposing to make Hayes Mobile Auto and Diesel Repair the exclusive maintenance and diagnostic service provider for the entire Caldwell Ranch's fleet of over 200 trucks, tractors, hay balers, combines, and other pieces of heavy agricultural equipment. It was a contract worth hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, a life-changing opportunity that would instantly transform her small, one-woman operation into a major enterprise. Amy sat on the steps of her small shop, holding the keys to her new six-figure service truck and a contract that would secure her future, and she was completely overwhelmed. She had simply stopped to help a stranger, had done her job to the best of her ability, and had charged a fair price. In her world, that was just what you did. She had no idea that this one simple act of kindness and professional integrity would lead to this. The story of what happened spread like wildfire through the small town of Canyon. Everyone knew Amy was a great mechanic, but the sudden appearance of the brand-new top-of-the-line service truck and the news of the massive contract with the legendary Caldwell Ranches elevated her to the status of a local hero. Her business exploded. The contract with Caldwell Ranches gave her the capital to hire 2 young mechanics from the local community college's diesel program, giving them their first real shot at a career. She expanded her shop from 2 bays to 6, creating a state-of-the-art facility for handling the most complex agricultural equipment. But Amy never changed. She was still the same down-to-earth, hands-on diagnostician. She used her newfound success not to enrich herself, but to build a better business and to train a new generation of mechanics in her philosophy. Diagnose first, fix it, right, and always be fair. She instilled in her young apprentices the importance of understanding the why behind a failure, not just the what. Her shop became known throughout the Texas Panhandle as the place you went when no one else could fix it, a place built on the bedrock of skill and integrity. Sam Caldwell became more than just her biggest client. He became a close friend and mentor. He was fascinated by her mind, and she was grounded by his wisdom and experience. They would often talk for hours, not about contracts or invoices, but about the challenges of their respective worlds, the unpredictable nature of cattle markets, and the equally unpredictable nature of intermittent electrical faults. Sam, in turn, learned a valuable lesson from Amy. He had become insulated by his wealth, accustomed to dealing with people who were either sycophantic or trying to take advantage of him. Amy's simple, unshakable integrity had been a breath of fresh air. He began to apply the Amy Hayes test to his other business dealings, prioritizing skill and character over slick presentations and corporate pedigrees. He found that by rewarding genuine expertise and honesty, his entire operation became more efficient and more profitable. One afternoon, several months later, one of Sam's oldest and most trusted ranch foremen saw Amy in her gleaming new service truck, her head deep in the engine bay of a massive combine harvester. "Who's the new hotshot mechanic, boss?" the foreman asked Sam. Sam smiled. "That's Amy Hayes," he said. "Looks like any other mechanic, right? She's the best diagnostic engineer in the state of Texas. I was stranded on the side of the road a while back. She stopped to help me when no one else would. Turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to this ranch." The story of the stranded millionaire and the honest mechanic became a quiet legend in the Panhandle. It wasn't a story of grand gestures or dramatic confrontations. It was a simple story about the profound, unforeseen power of a single act of kindness and a job well done. It was a reminder that character is what you do when no one is watching, and that integrity, in the long run, is the most valuable asset you can have. It proved that in a world that often seems complicated and cynical, the simple, old-fashioned virtues of honesty, skill, and a willingness to help a stranger on the side of the road can still change lives in the most extraordinary ways. So, as we finish this story, I ask you one final time, where are you watching from? Have you ever had an opportunity to help someone without any expectation of reward, or have you been the recipient of such an act of kindness? Let me know in the comments below, because Amy Hayes and Sam Caldwell proved that the biggest opportunities in life don't always come from carefully laid plans. Sometimes they come from simply stopping on the side of a lonely road to help someone in need. Let's build a community that believes in the power of that simple choice, together.